think what's kind of been pictured in my life to me is change. I worked for Nokia, for example, for 16 years, but I don't think I held the same job for more than 2 to 3 years. So I was either changing country, changing roles within the company, understand how things work, being able to dig into it, being able to look at it and say, what's it right down below? That's when I shifted to my thought process to engineering. So the first 7-8 years of my life was pure engineering, hardcore engineering.
Yeah.
And that's when I did my MBA and moved on more into a sales business development role. You have to be ready to let go of what you've learned so far. Being approximately right is much better than being accurately wrong. The other thing I think I keep very close also is to say there are no bad people. There are people who do bad things.
Before you start this episode, please can you click subscribe below and follow our social handles in the description. It's a massive help and it keeps you up to date with all the exciting announcements from the podcast. Shankar, thanks very much for coming on. Appreciate you giving us some time.
Thank you, Aaron.
Good to
Wonderful
see you.
To be here.
Right, I'm going to throw a question at you. Same one question that I start with everybody with, which is just a real quick summary of your kind of life to this point, but trying to get that crammed into no more than just 1 minute. Take me from early years Shankar all the way up to present day. Do you think you're up for the challenge?
I'll try to. Did think about it, but I never got around to it. So let's see what
comes out.
Goes to. Yes, exactly.
Go on, there's your minute.
Yeah. All right, thanks. Yeah, so life from birth to... I think what's kind of been pictured in my life to me is change. I think, like it or not, whether I was kind of forced into it, I guess. I was born in quite a big city, the Silicon Valley in India, in Bangalore. But then my dad was on a moving job, so we moved around quite a lot. So It's always been that. And once I completed my education, I left the country, left India, been in Singapore. So it's always been change. And it's always been about never being comfortable about where I was. I think that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I worked for Nokia, for example, for 16 years, but I don't think I held the same job for more than 2 to 3 years. So I was either changing country, changing roles within the company.
Yeah.
I was an engineer. I did my engineering. So the first 7-8 years of my life was pure engineering, hardcore engineering, product development. But then I found the sales guys were going and coming back and then giving me the spec and saying, and I'm looking, hey, that's not the product we're developing. Why the hell can't you guys sell what we do rather than the other way around?
Yeah.
And that's when I did my MBA and moved on more into a sales business development role. So that's what it is about me. I think that's what kind of pictures through my life is change.
Constant change, yeah. And with that, you've gone from corporate world to
Corporate
startup world to business
corporate.
Mentorship, coaching, giving back world that you're at now.
Exactly. That's what it was.
Good. We'll get into all the nuts and bolts of it because there's a few bits in particular that I really want to bring out. I think would be good for people watching and listening. But take us back. So you mentioned you grew up in a big city in India. So
Yep.
what was your sort of upbringing, early years?
Upbringing, early years. I mean, middle class family. Actually, maybe by the time I was born, my dad was in a little bit better space. But before that, it was relatively poor family. But by then, it actually got to a little comfortable phase. So never had. Got all the basics. Go to school, get things done, but never in any luxury, so we had to work hard to get where we are. I think, but it was friends, it was a lot of fun. I was never a sporty guy, I would always been a bit of a geek and a bookworm, so that's what it was about. But it was nice. Bangalore is a beautiful beautiful city, or
Is it?
was.
Okay.
Today, more of pollution and traffic, and it's...
What do you remember what was the sort of most fond memories from your sort of early years that you remember? You mentioned about change being one thing. Is it, even though in the early years back then, a lot of change?
A lot of change then too. I mean, even as I said, because my dad was moving jobs and locations.
What did he do?
He worked in telecoms.
Okay.
So the equivalent of BT in India.
Yeah.
So but it was a government organization.
Yeah.
And so they were actually transferable.
Okay.
So every few years they would move him around
Send somebody else,
to different locations. And so that was part of it. So, for example, my mother tongue, I never learned my mother tongue. We had depended upon English and Hindi as education, neither of which is my mother tongue. That's because you moved nationally, so you don't have the time.
Yeah, it takes time.
It takes time to pick up the language and so on and so forth, which was really fun because when I went back to do my engineering, it happened to be that I landed up in my home state where the home mother tongue was, but I didn't know the language. And, I had to start from scratch and pick it up. But until then, I was even shy. I mean, I used to speak a little bit of it at home, but you make all the stumbles and everyone would tease you the minute.
Yeah, so you don't bother.
Yeah. So you start closing yourself up. And not talking about the language, but got into an environment which was I was really made uncomfortable by my seniors, literally saying you better speak your mother tongue or else. Mm-hmm. And I really hats off to them, even if it was, that's the only reason I forced it out of it. And that taught me something about dropping inhibitions in general, which was a big challenge because you always tend to close yourself. And I think whether it was from then going on to speaking publicly or talking at conferences and all of those, I think I picked up a lot more courage to drop and face things up.
Yeah. So in terms of those foundations, then you mentioned about a lot of change with your dad and different jobs and bits and pieces. Going from an engineering background and having a future career and to present date of growth, leadership, strategy, innovation. What do you think your early years, knuckling down with the engineering side of things, did for your kind of future career? What were the traits that you think you sort of still hold dear, or?
Quite a few. I think I might have even written some blogs about this at some point in time in my life. What I believe there was a lot of things that I got. Basic education, and I keep telling people the youngsters who come and ask me, it doesn't really matter what subject you take, whether you do physics or economics or engineering or so on. I think the basic education, the first 3-4 years of your university, in my case, that builds up. It's your time to build up your thinking process, the way you approach things.
Yeah.
And I have what I call the basic rules. So let's take one of the basic rules of physics. Matter can neither be created nor destroyed. You can take that and you can apply it pretty much anywhere else. So it's the same thing when it comes to business, and we may have talked about this. You can't create a new market totally. There's a market, there's a customer, this one.
Yeah.
So something has to give. You can't create totally new markets.
Yeah.
It has to substitute something, or there's only so much money in the world for businesses to spend. Mm-hmm. Yes, it increases slightly, but not in any major way. So you have to always look at it. And that's the kind of thing that I take from even my basic learnings and apply it to today.
So they're practicalities. What about sort of mindset factors?
From a mindset factor,
from that first sort of role in the engineering,
I think it's learning. It is about you being able to always innovate. The great thing about again, engineering. I mean, we work with our hands, right? So it's being able to analyze things a bit more, and understand how things work, being able to dig into it, being able to look at it and say, what's it right down below? And it's the same thing. I mean, I still remember when the early days when we used to pin the signals on the back end and monitor them and say, hey, what's going wrong? Really go down into the depth. And today in the business, you still kind of, when you face a problem, try to keep digging into saying, what's that underneath that goes wrong and is causing something to happen?
When I looked at your history and found out you'd done engineering, I didn't even know. I hadn't looked that far back. No, from what I know of you now, in terms of what way that we work together over a period of many years, and how you operate and what you do and where your skill set is, it really surprised me that you had more of a practical start. Why did you? Why engineering? What was the?
That's an interesting one too. I mean, originally my parents wanted me to be a doctor, but I maths was the reason.
I think you'd have been a good doctor, to be fair.
Possibly.
You've got a very trusting look and a very trusting charisma about you.
Oh, thank you very much. It was actually a maths teacher, I think, who made me love maths somewhere along the way, and that's when I shifted to my thought process to engineering. And that's the teacher who told me. I mean, I once scored 99 out of 100 in a maths exam, and he told me the last one is going to be as hard as the 99, you know. But he was a very, very impressive. I think that's where I shifted to engineering and looked at
At that point in your life, did you have role models? Did you have people you looked at at a point in time, or?
I mean, that particular maths teacher, Mr. Shetty, was definitely a role model, not just in the way he approached it, but the way he approached people, the way he helped, handheld people, guided them and mentored them. So that was always a role model for me. But I also got to be a very hands-on person in terms of tinkering around. I used to be a radio ham, if you know what radio ham is. Radio amateur? Okay. A radio amateur. We built our own wireless sets and communicate to people all over the world.
Okay.
So it's a hobby, but we provided communications at rallies and things like that for car rallies across, and radio hams do a great service in flood and whenever there is a disaster.
Yeah.
Because a lot of other communication systems break down.
Yeah.
And so you would have big antennas on top of.
So you're a bit of a techie then.
Yeah. I'm very, very techie. Even today.
Yeah.
So I love tech, and
you like your gadgets.
Love gadgets. Anything. I'll pull it down, break it down.
What's your relationship with technology, gadgets, and stuff like that now?
Today with gadgets, again, anything that's broken down, I'll possibly do repairs myself, even at home. So I will try and tinker it around. But now it's like AI, for example. I started playing around with it and did an application for one of the charities that I'm working with to have that application go live. So I couldn't resist doing it myself. And, so...
Get into the detail.
Get into the detail.
So you had a practical, more technical few years as an engineer.
Yep.
And then you went and decided that you wanted to go and work for a big conglomerate in Nokia, doing something completely different. How did that all come about?
Like I said, I think the motivation was really the fact that the sales guys, I was heading a product development team. We were developing the product, going through. It was it's a communication product for navies and civil defense and so on. But when the sales team would go out and sell, and they were trying to sell it to export companies and other foreign, they would come back and even though we had all these nice little spec documents,
We need this.
they'd come back and they would have gone and agreed with something else with the customer and come back, and then I would have to get my team to
Make it.
change it, modify it, get it through the production. So it seemed like almost every customer turned out to be a new product.
Everything was different. Yeah.
And I really sat around and said, why the hell can't you guys sell? What's so difficult about selling? And that's what really made me change. And I have to thank my wife too, because she encouraged me at that time to take up my MBA, do my MBA at the same time. I did it as an evening session. And so that both of those just kind of coincided, just as I was finishing my MBA and and Nokia at that time needed someone. Nokia was, this was way back, many years back. Nokia was hardly known to many people at that time. And they were starting to just grow in the market.
I was going to say, so Nokia had times where they were one of the strongest in the market.
Correct.
So when you got into Nokia, it was before that boom.
It was way before that. I always used to say when I joined Nokia, its share price was around €2.
Okay.
When I left, it was around €2, but in between it got to 62.
Yeah, wow.
So I went through the whole ride.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Nokia was also a very techie company. This was the infrastructure side, not the mobile phone side of it, selling into operators. But I had a boss there who was also forward-thinking, and he realized that you can't keep submitting tender documents and win contracts by just doing the techie stuff. And he found something in me because of my desire to do the change. But you still needed to be techie because
you need the knowledge, grounded knowledge. Yeah,
it was needed. The industry was tech-based. But he knew that something had to be changed. And I think he put his trust in me and got me in at that time.
So you just felt you had the right blend of
tech versus business, right? And I still remember one of the first customers I went to. So normally what happens is people would be talking to the CTOs, the tech IT departments, the tech departments, and they would go, here's your tender, fill in all this, do your tender, let's do a trial run, and then evaluate, and then finally negotiate and squeeze on the price. I went into one of the telecom operators, and there was a lady there who had moved from Kellogg's, so she had nothing about telecoms. She had been given a marketing job.
Yeah.
She was a CMO. So I went to her, and instead of talking about the tech, I prepared a package for her. And I said, hey, why don't you go out to the market with this offering to the customer?
Yeah.
We got this fancy new software feature coming up that'll allow you to now segment your market and create a totally new product.
Yeah.
And she got absolutely thrilled about it. I never told her what it was. All I said was there was a new feature coming which will allow you to create this new product in the marketplace. And I still remember my boss calling me a couple of weeks later and saying he got the call from the CTO and got a earful about why I was talking to the marketing people instead of that. Because she went in and said, I want this.
Yeah.
That's all. And they had no option but to come back to Nokia and just say, give us the price.
Yeah.
No more negotiation, nothing.
Yeah.
So that was...
So it just rips up the normal way of...
doing things. Yes,
doing the business.
Yeah.
What was it like working at Nokia?
Oh, it's absolutely great. Nokia was the organization. Empowerment, I think that was really how they worked. The amount of trust they paid to individuals and just let them go. This was another example, very early, I think, one of my first meetings actually. Because I joined Nokia for 3 weeks, I was given big bundles of files and folders and sit there and read about all the products and everything. And I was telling my boss, I want to get out. I'm not here to sit. He said, enjoy it when you can. And then a few weeks back, he says, okay, Shankar, you got this customer meeting in Thailand, and you need to go there. And so on. I said, okay, fine, great, for my first customer meeting.
Yeah.
I said, I'll go in there, I'll listen to what my colleague in Thailand, the senior guy, is going to be doing, and from then on, I will take over.
Yeah.
And he said, when he turned around, I think you misunderstood. You're doing the presentation at the meeting, right? So it's yours, all yours. So I'm there first time, 3 weeks, full
Straight
trust, go.
Yeah. How did it go?
It went well. We won the contract, so what more do we need? There are plenty of those stories that I could keep saying. The other one that I absolutely love is taking the customer. I was asked to take them around Europe. So we came to UK, met with Orange and so on, so customers, and then went to Finland, which is our headquarters.
Yeah.
And I was in charge of that whole customer trip. So I did a whole lot of agendas and preparation, and I sat into the conference room in Finland and sat down and said, here's our agenda for the next 3 days. Mm-hmm. I've got this, all these experts coming and doing all the presentations.
Yeah.
I'd shared the agenda with them ahead. They had not said anything. But that time when I presented it, one guy stood up and said, I'm sorry, that's not what we want. We want to visit all our factories.
Yeah.
So
this is the customer saying
the
that.
customer.
Yeah.
CTO stands up and says, no, we don't want to listen to presentations. We want to actually see your factories.
Yeah.
And I was not prepared for it, right? So I called up my boss back in Singapore, and he said, can I give you a call back? And he calls me back 2 days later.
Helpful.
But in the meanwhile, I knew some contact in Finland. I started doing, and I arranged all the factory visits. But eventually, when he called him, I said, I needed help at that time. He said, no, Shankar, I trusted you. Find a way to do it.
So he purposely didn't ring you back because he knew you'd figure it out.
He knew I'd figure it out. And that's the level of confidence they had in people. They would hire the right people and just let them off.
So you can look at that in two ways. You can look at that as having confidence in people, or you could look at that in a way that maybe they're a bit lazy.
No, at least not to me. From my personal experience, no, it was not about being lazy.
I've worked for bosses that, do what you like, because they can't be asked. Or do what you like and you feel genuinely empowered to say, okay, I can make decisions, I can do this within a wider framework.
Correct.
Yeah.
But this was clearly a case. But I think that's also the Finnish way of doing things. They have a lot of trust in people. So I think that was partly the reason for the downfall eventually, because too many people, as it grew, that was all great when it was a relatively small company, because everyone knew what the vision was and you would fit in and you'd do it for the sake of the company. But as it grows bigger, you start building.
Well, you've got people working against each other, potentially not to the same common goal.
Exactly. Because I do remember eventually when I was responsible for one of the products in Nokia that had to go into all the devices in Nokia. It's an app store that I was responsible for. I had to talk to each individual product manager, each country. Everyone had a say whether the app store would go onto the Nokia device or not.
Right.
In their domain.
It's I think dangerous in a way. You give that autonomy.
Yeah.
It's really, really good for a period of time. Like you said, it gets very, very difficult to manage, and you can never relinquish that then, because then people get their knickers in a twist a little bit. Their autonomous playground is now condensing. It's not a great, and then you hear that it's not the same place to work. I'm getting micromanaged. I'm getting told what to do. It's a strange. I've made the mistakes that grow in teams in the past where we've thought, the right thing to do is just give these guys the space, let them crack on with it, and then when things don't necessarily go to plan, you then egg it up a bit, and it gets uncomfortable for people. And it's hard. It's a hard balance to broker.
It's a hard balance to broker. It's also different kind of people, which is the other challenge, I think, for every growing organizations. Because when you're small, you can get the right people that you want in. They all align with you. They all match. Things work perfectly. As you grow, it's difficult, right? There's only limited number of people.
Yeah, layers keep coming in and things
you
get
will
diluted,
keep having different kind of people in, and how do you then keep the same
ethos
culture throughout?
Tough.
It is tough.
That's the magic.
It's a magic, and I'm not sure there's anyone who has really changed it, and it's hard because you have to change. You have to be ready to let go of what you've learned so far, because once an organization reaches a certain stage, then you know that the old models don't work, but then you got the old people there, and never an easy.
Constant challenge, constant change. There's one of my leaders once said to me, what did he say? The only thing consistent in business is change.
It is, yeah.
Every day.
It is.
So you've had experience working across different countries,
Yep.
different cultures. Obviously, your upbringing to Singapore, to Finland. You mentioned the head office, Denmark,
Yep.
Nokia. How's that kind of shaped you as a person?
It shaped me in, I think, being able to adjust. That's very, very critical. In Denmark, again, I remember when I was leaving Denmark finally after 4 years there, saying my goodbyes, and I had a very good colleague. The Danes, for those who don't know, are really, they can be very honest and cutthroat, and they would tell you straightforward to your face.
Yeah.
Anything, no niceties like you have it here. And one of my colleagues said, how did you enjoy it and all that. And that colleague of mine was really somebody who was an absolute symptom of Danishness, who would straight away say to your face when you're not doing something right. And I told him, I really enjoyed it, and I have to thank you very much because you taught me how to be as a public podcast, so be bad, whatever, buzzard equivalent, right?
Yeah.
Because it really turned out to be, he really taught me how, because I was generally, being an Asian, generally trying to defer to people and being humble and not offend people.
Yeah.
And here was a guy who absolutely didn't care
Doesn't care.
about,
Very
didn't
direct.
care, even to customers, direct. And got his way through, and you learn from that there are times and places where you
need to be a little bit more direct.
So that's
So with that role at Nokia, you're managing products and contracts, hundreds of millions of pounds. You must have had times where there was pressures and stresses and bits and pieces. Is there one that comes out in your mind specifically that was a real difficult one for whatever the reason is? And if you can pick that out in your mind, how did you deal with it?
I think one of them was, I think we as I said, I was responsible for this equivalent of an app store, but we were much more than an app store. We were also selling content, ringtones, games. Games was there, but also, this is where Nokia was always ahead on these. But and we had to negotiate. So there's always a chicken and egg on these, right? So Nokia at that time was still one of the largest mobile phones. So yes, it provides access to such a wide range of customers. So that's our strength. But on the other hand, as we were getting into this market, a store like that doesn't make sense without content. So content providers. So we had a lot of negotiation with content providers. And one of the tougher ones that I had in Europe was to deal with one of those content providers who was at that time one of the biggest providers of games, ringtones, and so on and so forth. And it was about negotiating that contract. And we spent 3 days in Germany sitting and negotiating the details about how.
What was the rough value of the contract?
That would be, I think eventually it would have worked if gone, I don't remember now, but in a couple of hundred of millions of content that would go through the global.
So it's big ticket.
It's a big ticket one. But having said that, we can't, they would have obviously like exclusivity and blah, I mean, all the usual things that came in there. And we sat down and we finally came down. And I think this is where you learn about negotiation, is about putting yourself in the other person's seat, right? That's very important, because I think we finally boiled down to about 3 or 4 bullet points in there that we were really sticking and about. And I realized that it wasn't so much about the person who was negotiating. He had to go back and get the approval in there to get it done. And that's when I realized that what would make a difference is to give him the tools. So
what does he need to get the deal over the line?
Exactly.
From his boss,
So,
but doesn't that even come down even further than that, to actually understanding that person isn't the guy that's making the decision as well?
Yeah, that's one. That's one. And then it's about, I actually did the presentation or bullet points for the presentation that he needs to go and do it and say why the deal was.
You're educating him and supporting him on how to deliver.
I didn't tell him that.
Better.
I didn't tell him that, but effectively that's what I did. Gave him the reasons why he could justify our point of view to his bosses. So I think that's been. I think I've used that technique in a couple of places, which have been very effective.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And in terms of Nokia as a whole, why do you think the ship declined?
I think I would blame this empowerment at the end of the day.
So maybe a bit of a from within.
From within. So we had something like, I don't know, almost close to 100 different products, right? 100 different phones at that time. And as I said, because of the authority that each of those product managers had, you might have had, and actually we did have, at least 10 different software versions. So extremely talented team in Nokia. I saw some of the cutting edge products that were not released. I was actually having in my hand, testing them out. They were beautiful, but they never got released. But the amount, if we had, let's say, I don't know how many engineers we had, but let's say you had 1,000 engineers. If they were working on one product,
imagine the progress.
But now this would have been split into 10 different products. And
how do you govern who gets the time and the money and the investment? And
exactly. So the resources were really split.
So quality was there, but it was just it was an organizational resource issue.
Yeah, I think it was at the end of the day. That's what it was. They were
great phones, great battery life. I think there's a 3210 out there in everyone's drawer that's probably still not been charged. It's still got a bit of power in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great phones, power.
If I think back to the fun things about phones that I used to hold when I was younger, and things you used to do is, your Nokia 3210s, you're playing Snake on it, or you're keying your ringtones in using the buttons and stuff like that. I used to have the Formula 1 ringtone in mind. That I think it took me about half an hour to key it in with the different bits on the keypad. And you think back, obviously technology's completely different now, but fond memories really.
Yeah, it is. And I remember, I don't know if there was this little brick phone which was the first communicator. Which was, you open up the tab and you had it. I still remember in Denmark, I was going to the office. I had 2 phones, and this one had somehow slipped off as I was getting into my car. And it had dropped, and I didn't realize it. I drove all the way to the office, then realized I didn't have my phone. I couldn't locate it where it was. I thought I'd left it somewhere at home. And it was a winter, snowy day. I came back home. I found it on my driveway. It was under the snow. I had driven over it, picked it up, went home, wiped it up, and it
still
worked.
Used it. That's Nokia down to a T.
That was Nokia at that time.
Can't, it wouldn't happen with phones these days, I tell you. So you went from the corporate world then, and then you went and started a business.
That's right, I did.
Again, another quite significant change, really.
It was. Nokia was going through its tough time. And I think I got to a stage where I said, I can't, when things were not going right, I can't say somebody else's problem. And what's the best way to do that is if I take complete ownership of it, right? So I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And in some ways, Nokia allowed me.
It gave you that autonomy, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, being your in many in many ways I had because of the autonomy and the authority. So, but as it grew bigger, as I said, it went to, and once it was sold to Microsoft, I realized it's just going to be a place where it's not. So that's when I decided, and I had some ideas to go on a startup. And I was in Finland at that time and decided to quit Nokia and jump into this wonderful
New
world
venture.
of entrepreneurship. Big risk in there, obviously. And but yeah, it had some great mentors there in Finland. And
why did you want to do it then? What was it? You mentioned you'd always wanted to run a business.
Yep.
Where's that come from?
That's a good question. One of the astrologers at some point in time had said I would be an entrepreneur at the age of 40. It didn't happen. It happened later.
What was that? One of the ones in the paper?
The actual...
Read the Sun.
No, not in the paper. This is one of those...
My mum always used to read me though. So I'm a Capricorn. Every morning before school she'd read the Capricorn to me.
But in India, you have these horoscopes and actual astrologers who would read through your horoscope and kind of tell you. Anyway, no, that was not the reason, but that was just more of a... which was an interesting coincidence eventually. But as I said, I think it was really about saying, how can you stop blaming others and take responsibility?
Total ownership, either way.
Total ownership, right? Either whether you're doing good or bad, it's yours.
Yeah.
And I wanted that. And because I came to that stage when Nokia, my last job in Nokia, I had another department. I was trying to help them. And I used to say, towards the end, the last couple of years in Nokia was quite bad because I had more people telling me what I shouldn't be doing rather than what I should be doing.
That's the culture shift then, isn't it?
That's the culture shift.
Yeah, a lot more conflict.
And that's where I said, you can't start blaming others, so you can't, it's just about the buck stops with me. And what's the best way to do it as being an entrepreneur and running. And I had so many ideas in my mind that I wanted to bring.
So what was it doing? What was the grand idea?
The one that I finally selected upon was to bring targeted audio advertising to radio.
Okay.
So today, if you're listening to a radio on your mobile app, you would get the same ad that you're hearing on FM. So they just generally just stream it and pass it on. So the idea was to actually identify when an ad was playing and replace it. That's something very personalized to an individual.
Yeah.
So that was quite a technical achievement that needed to be done.
Was that already in the market at the time?
There was something in the market, but they were doing it on the server. Okay. Because I knew what the power of the mobile was, my idea was do it right next to where you are. So which means that if you're driving on the highway and there's a McDonald's on the exit next, you could actually
get an ad from McDonald's.
Get an ad from McDonald's. So that you could only do if you're doing it right on the device itself. And we got a patent on that. So that was what it was.
Quick word from one of our sponsors, Guru Technology. Simply put, they're the highest Google-rated company in their industry. A very different service and a very different set of products covering business-to-business mobiles, phone systems, energy, renewables and EV, security, CCTV, alarms, AMPR, broadband and IT. They specialise in dealing with companies who are receiving really poor service and spending a lot of money currently with their supplier. They will come to site, do a free of charge audit and fix any problems that you're having. So if you've got problems with your current supply chain, search Guru Technology in Google and give them a buzz. Thank you. Let's get back to the podcast.
So what was the pinnacle of that journey with that business? What was the highest point for you?
The highest point, obviously, was having customers use it and see it live in action, absolutely.
I suppose that, in thinking about what we've just spoken about, brings your first 8 years in engineering and your time at Nokia together, really.
Yeah.
You've kind of been able to create,
Yep.
but you've been able to grow a business and use your leadership skills and talent to be able to bring that to market, gain investment.
Correct.
And do all that stuff. So it kind of brings everything together, doesn't it?
It was. It did do all that. And I think, let's face it, I think the other thing that was, I think, really big about that was you raised the point, investments, right? So hats off to the investors who put their money and trust in me.
You didn't just get a little bit of cash, you got a couple of million quid.
Yeah, we did.
How did you go and raise that against something that maybe wasn't proven or wasn't in the market in that way, that mobile-based targeted radio?
And I think that's what I was coming to. I think it is what I realized at the end of the day. And eventually it was not the most successful of the business, so we had to exit. And I had to inform the investors that they're not going to get their money back.
Yeah.
And one of them actually replied to me and saying, Shankar, let me know when you're doing your next startup. I want to invest again.
Okay.
And I think maybe that was really the pinnacle height of my realization that people, it's
believe in you.
Yeah, the trust in me. But it's also a responsibility. It is an enormous burden, but it's also to say it was something that people said, even if it was not successful at the end of the day, the fact that they were willing to go on the journey again with me.
That says a lot, doesn't it?
Says a lot.
So what did you learn about yourself during those years?
That I could communicate. Again, as I said, I've always been an introvert. But it was about being able to use some of those skills. And again, I think it's not too far from the same thing that I talked about, the negotiation. It's being able to tell the people what they would like, what they should hear, what they want to hear, to be able to communicate to different people in different ways, so that whether it's customers need a certain conversation, investors need, employees. I mean, that's again, some of my proud moments have been with the employees. I remember one of them left. We were not able to pay huge amounts, but we gave shares in many cases. But still, one of the software developers that we really liked, left our company. But a month later, he called back and said, can I come and join you back? Because he realized. And I think being able to allow that kind of an empowerment and environment for people to thrive was something that...
The grass wasn't greener for certain people if they were...
Yeah,
made them realise what they had.
Exactly, they didn't realise what they had, yeah.
What do you think in terms of decision making then? So over your career, you've had to make some tough decisions, you've had to do some different things under stress, or whether it's your own business, so it's very personal, or you've had an investment, so you feel that pressure. Data-driven decisions versus gut feeling decisions. What's more important?
At the end of the day, it's your gut that you need to trust. But you just need to be empowered by data. So I had this other...
Surprises me you saying that.
Really? Yeah. I had this other saying that being approximately right is much better than being accurately wrong. So if you depend too much on data, and I came up with that because within Nokia there was this wonderful guy who created an extremely big Excel sheet with some 30 sheets.
Name wasn't Pete, was it?
Sorry?
Name wasn't Pete, was it?
We were using it in order to tell our customers, network operator customers, how much infrastructure they should plan and what system. And it had thousands of inputs in, and you put it all into this Excel sheet, and then it would finally say, you want this many base stations and blah, 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 blah. And I used to look at it because I was supposed to use it in order to talk to customers. And I was like, this makes no sense, because if you make one small mistake in one of the inputs,
Compounding effect across the rest of it. Yeah.
It's so bad. So that's when I started talking about being approximately right rather than accurately wrong. So you need enough data to know where your parameters are. But at the end of the day, it just has to say, hey, because things can always go wrong.
You see a lot of that on social media, trust your gut, but then it's kind of, in this day and age, you need to make data-driven decisions. Is there a call for making your decision based on your gut, but validating your decision based on using data? Is that the meat in the middle? And then if you are making decisions with your gut, there's then that emotive side of it, which most of the time when you're making an emotive decision, it's maybe not the right one.
You're right. And
it's a tough balance to broker, I think.
It's a tough balance, but that's where I kind of say it's use the data to define the parameters, right? So your data is always going to be, because you can use all the past data that you want. Take all your customer data, everything, and the way the customer is going to behave next month
might not be the same as it has been for 2 years prior. Yeah.
Right. So, but that data from the prior is very useful to know where your parameters are. But then you have to take the realization that it can be, let's say, 20% up, 20% down, 30%. What happens if something changes here by 30%? So, and that's where that's where you use your gut to say, what do I think? Do I think over the next year it's going to move across? It's going to be up 30%, down 30%. And that you can only use your gut. You can't use data for that.
I think it's dangerous to make meaningful decisions based on your gut.
I'm sorry?
Do you think it's dangerous for a business owner to make meaningful decisions based on their gut? Like big decisions?
No, it's not. I think most decisions at the end of the day are made on gut. But as I said, you always have to have a grounding in data. Never forget that. So you can't be totally gut, I just feel. So take your data and then say, I think it'll go up or down. It can go up or down or whatever, vary by. And that, use your gut. But the base has to be as far as possible.
So you've had a very, very varied career in terms of what you're doing. You also sit as board and trustee of some bits and pieces at the minute, namely the Doddridge Centre.
Yep,
so that's something completely different again.
It is.
In terms of that organisation. So why are you doing that, and what do you do for them?
I think a few years into this entrepreneurship, I said I want to give back. I think that's where I started off in there. Looked around for saying, okay, what can I do for charities? Yes, I could give money, but I think I had much more valuable thing than money to give. And that's how I landed up with the Doddridge Centre here in Northampton and joined up as a trustee. And I think my main objective then and still is to help that charity think about it themselves as a business, bring my business expertise into them. And of course, being a geek, technology, I've actually been doing as much as I can. but it was really about making them think about it as a business, make them more
Do
operational.
you think that was a weakness prior to your involvement? How did you find them as well?
Oh, that was an ad. They had
Okay.
an ad out for a trustee, so I went in. Yes, it's always. I think it's still a weakness. I've been involved with quite a few charities now, but it is a weakness that I think I was just talking to someone yesterday about this, but charities are set up by people with a lot of passion, and they want to do such a lot of things, and they have an enormous belief and trust in what they can actually do.
Yeah.
Right, and if you're looking at it from as a business, what's your biggest thing? A business is always constrained. They realize they have to prioritize. They need to have the limited resources, whether it's money, people, so on. And how do you actually prioritize and focus? And that's one element of the business that charities generally lack. Same thing with funding, right? So charities do believe they can always constantly, they are dependent upon grants in many cases, as the Doddridge Center is. Now, how do you actually look at other ways of getting donations, other incomes, wherever it is? So bringing those into the Doddridge Center was what I...
And that's just shaped in a way that you feel that you're giving back, and you're giving back your expertise and experience on the business side, shaping that with the passion of the people that run it day to day.
Correct.
And that's...
Yeah, it is. And it's also about, I think, a critical decision we made in the Doddridge Center. We went through a tough patch after I came in with the senior management there, and it went really down into doldrums. And eventually during COVID we struggled, but got some government help and support and so on to help us get slightly on. And then we built a small amount of balance in the bank account. And this is the other thing this was purely from my business hat. I said that money there are two ways of doing it. To say, hey, let's just struggle along and use up this money and run as long as this money is there, and it might come to, we can last another year or two.
Yeah.
Or we look at the money in the bank as an investment, find someone, hire someone who can actually, we take that money and invest it into a person, not spend it into a person, but invest it into a person and get the return back. And we found wonderful center director in Rachel now, who has actually helped turn around the Doddridge Center.
She's very passionate.
She's very passionate, very hardworking, and we are now in a very comfortable position, for now at least. And it's been turned around. I mean, the Doddridge Center is so vibrant now, people coming in and things being done and so much more. But I still remember the discussion I had with the chair at that time, because he actually had pulled out the ad for the center director, saying we don't have enough money. We were worried about spending the money. I said, no, let's take that money. Okay, if it means that in 6 months we're down to the ground rather than 2 years, that's the risk we take.
But that's your business.
That's the business hat coming
Yeah,
in, saying, let's take that risk and the returns would be much better.
So you've been doing Fiery Growth for a while now.
Yes,
Do you want to just tell everyone a bit about what that is and what you're trying to do?
So Fiery Growth, after I exited from my startup, I realized one of the things that went through was a challenge between, for me, going from corporate to the entrepreneurship, being an owner, such a different structure, and I wasn't fully equipped for that. Now, obviously, I learned a lot from going through the corporate life, going through all these various things and being an entrepreneur. I'm also an angel investor, so I've been investing into some startups. So use all of this expertise to help others. So that's what really Firing Growth is about firing up the growth for
Other
small
people.
businesses.
Yeah. Why small businesses?
Because I think they are the ones that need the most help. Bigger businesses can afford to find their super duper consultants and so on and so forth. And so then small businesses.
So if you're a small business now that's struggling to grow or just started or whatever, when if any time would be the right time to speak to somebody like yourself, and what would you offer them?
First and foremost, I think the tougher thing for everyone to say is to realize that an external input is invaluable, right? So initially you have all the passion when you start off and go on and gung-ho and go. Now, a business coach can help you at any stage, but really it is, I think the biggest value would be when you've gone through that part of initial learning yourself.
Yeah.
And then you come to a stage where you say, I need more input. And it's a hard one. In fact, I would say when you think you don't need a business coach is when you need a business coach. When you think you know yourself, when you think you have all the answers, that's when you need a business coach.
There's a lot of people out there that are business coaches.
Yep.
A lot of people that you see that have been there, allegedly been there and done it. Some of them you then go looking in a bit further and they've done absolutely nothing, and it's some sort of get-rich-quick scheme or some pyramid thing. How do you differentiate from other people? What is different about your offering as opposed to some person that's flying all over social media?
That's a tough one because it's a tough one for me to answer because obviously I don't know the others well enough, right? So where I focus on is to say, what have I gone through and what's my life experience and and that is different for each person.
Yeah.
So what I bring in as a difference is having gone through this journey of constant change, of having been exposed to different countries, different cultures, different technology, business, and all of that aspect. I always say I can see the woods without missing the trees because my engineering skills allow me to be very detailed, but the rest of my experience allows me to think about the big picture. And that's the variation that I think not many people have in being able to do both. And it's really about, at the end of the day, it's my personal experience and my personal exposure that makes it.
Are you quite picky when you look for people to look after, people to help? Are you quite picky? Is there certain types of businesses or people that you stay clear of? Do you specialise in a certain vertical or sector, other than it being a smaller business?
I tend to kind of gravitate towards people who have some technology part in the business because
naturally your history, isn't it?
Or they would feel more comfortable with me on that thing. But I think bottom line, it's really about the attitude of the person. If they're not willing to learn, if they're not open enough, and I meet plenty of people who don't believe they need the help or not at least open to giving it a try, then it's not worth the time.
Is that just because your effort and nothing's going to change?
Yeah,
ticking a box for them.
Exactly. So that.
Have you had conversations and lost clients because you've said, look, you're not?
Yes, I have.
You're not open to some of the conversations that we're having here.
Yeah, I have actually had to stop. That's one saying. Well, I mean, if I'm not adding any value, then there's no point in continuing, right? Yeah. So yes, so definitely, I've had those. I've had people that I've had the first conversation with and said, yeah, now come back. Let's circle back in a few months' time and see if you really still need anything.
So other than sort of technology being something that, you want technology to be involved somewhere in that business or in that conversation, you mentioned about attitude being important.
Yes.
What are some of the other bits that are important? What are some of the red flags that you see?
I think maybe to some extent a red flag is always a challenge to me. I go in with an attitude when I see a red flag, and I've burnt myself on this. I say I can actually take this on and help out with that. And so sometimes a red flag is like a
Challenge.
a challenge. It's people who, I think, if it's people, it really at the end of the day is people who say, no, I've got everything under control. I know what's happening. That's the biggest red flag that would
Kind of bodes the question of why are you having that conversation?
Yeah.
Why are you even interested in a conversation?
Exactly.
If you don't need the help.
Correct. So that's that I think is the single biggest.
What would you say your sort of style is? So some people have got a very brash style, some people have data analytical style, some people a bit slowly catch a monkey with business coaching and stuff. What's your style?
Listening. It's very hard for me to do as an engineer to stop myself from offering solutions.
Yeah.
And that has been the biggest challenge for me, moving into a coaching role.
Yeah.
But I think I've kind of taken on that challenge and learned to keep.
Have you ever sat in front of somebody and you know the solution?
Oh yes, absolutely.
And you just want to say, you should be just doing this, mate.
Absolutely.
Because that other person's probably thinking, you're making me work here.
Yeah.
You obviously know what's going on. Just tell me.
Yeah.
We'll get there quicker.
That happens.
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And it's an enormous effort on my side to constrain myself.
Because we all know that you lead somebody down a certain path and enable them to understand why and how things are work, and you know that information is then most of the time going to then sit and be something they'll use for the future.
Yeah.
But that could take weeks, months, multiple meetings to get to that point where you could just say, do you know what? You shouldn't be doing it that way. You should do this.
Correct.
If I was in your shoes, I would wrestle with that all the time because I want it yesterday.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, so it's like I've got this golden nugget. Not because I know everything, but I've been through a situation before. I think I know exactly what you need to do. Why don't you just do this? And then everybody wins.
Yeah, I agree. And believe me, with each of my clients, I can actually, I think I know the solution, and that's the realization that keeps me back, is to say I'm not.
What if it's not right?
I'm not the person. So I may know the solution, but it's not my business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So the two things. One, irrespective of how much ever I think I know, I have to be realistic and say, I don't know everything. Mm-hmm. One. The second thing is, I'm there for that point in time and for the next month and the next month, whatever it is, but I'm not there on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And it's the business owner who is there on a daily basis. So it has to be their ownership, not mine. So the challenge with giving ideas is to someone, they may like it, absolutely love it at that point in time.
That's just all I do. Yeah.
Yeah, but next day it's not theirs.
Yeah.
To run with, and it just gets dropped off, or something else comes in that I did not know about when I was offering the solution, that makes the person think, well, this is not going to work.
So, in your opinion, then, you must have worked with many different leaders, working for them, good and bad. You've learned how to and how not to operate. You've worked with businesses doing what you're doing now, and for several years where you're operating in and around a good network of leaders. What do you think is the top kind of couple of traits that you spot with good leadership?
There's so many of them, but I think again talking about my boss in Nokia, right, was the absolute ideal of a leader for me, and that's about empowerment. It's about being able to trust others, trust but verify. How do you do that? And it's about being able to set the parameters. So good leaders are the ones who can actually are willing to let go, first and foremost. The second thing, I think, is about being able to be inspiring. How do you communicate what you want to achieve rather than and be open enough. I think when I was running my startup, we had about 10 employees and about 7 different nationalities. And I found that diversity part of it also is very important. Being open enough and not being constrained and avoiding groupthink is critical.
To engage in other people's varied opinion.
Yeah, you don't have to have copies of yourself to be successful. In fact, you should not have copies of yourself to be successful. So how do you make sure you are open enough to somebody that is very different from you and still be able to bring them along as a team?
So you've done 3 decades in business. You've worked in multiple organisations of all shapes and sizes. You mentor and look after different businesses of shape and sizes. You've worked in different cultures, different places around the world. Has there been a common belief that stayed with you since the start? A common strand of DNA that hasn't changed? So you mentioned change at the start. There's obviously a lot of change. Being able to adapt to change. But has there been something that from the start has been a constant belief for you throughout your whole career, regardless of all the cultures and the businesses you've worked with and the places you've worked?
Maybe it is my willingness to believe in people that
you've always had.
I've always had. I think when people tell me something, I would accept it at face value. It's always to me, first and foremost, you tell me this, that's what you are doing. Or in the back of my mind, I might think, no, not really. But that's what he has told me. I will accept it. And from there on, until it's proven wrong, that's what works for me. And that, I think that's been always been something that I kept closest to say. And the other thing I think I keep very close also is to say there are no bad people. There are people who do bad things, but I have a very strong belief that I've not met a bad person. There may be reasons why they do some bad things or so on. So it's always, and try to move things always to things that are done rather than make it personal. But don't make it personal, but make it about things that they've done.
Okay, so as we wrap up, we've summarised quite a bit of stuff there throughout your career and your life, from your upbringing to present day in terms of some of the work that you're doing with some of the small businesses that you're helping at the moment. So thinking about you when you were 20, have you got a bit of advice that you give yourself?
Great question.
For the last 6 years, you've put me on the spot with questions. And today's your payback.
Today is a payback.
Yeah, in a nice way.
No, there are a lot of things.
Pick one. Just what's the main thing you think the main bit of chat that you would give yourself if you could talk to yourself many, many, many years ago?
Learn from others. I think I never did that enough. I was so busy working, traveling, bringing up kids, all of that I didn't. Today I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts or reading and so on and so forth, right? And I really wish I had done the equivalent of whatever it was at that time.
Yeah.
To be learning from others or learning from books, or it was not really. I don't think I've tapped into other people's expertise as much as I should have.
Is that why you like to get involved in what people are doing now?
I think
it's
so.
a way of scratching an itch as well, because I'm guessing most conversations you have, most people you meet, you learn something new.
Yeah,
it is the same for me.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, now that you put it that way, that's possibly what it is, because that's possibly what I never did enough of. There was a lot of confidence in what I knew, and then I would learn on the job, yes, but by actually doing it.
Yeah.
But I could have learned a lot faster if I had tapped into other people, which I don't think I did enough.
I didn't do that enough.
I
put my head to when I was in early 20s and learnt a lot of stuff. I used to read books religiously, listen to audibles all the time, and speak to anyone that's known me for that long. JB will verify. Since I was 15, I don't like the word self-develop. I've always wanted to take stuff in.
Right.
Practically and off my own back, finding solutions to problems, reading things and taking things. And I think in this day and age, it's so easy to do that. But I think you lose maybe in this day and age, you can listen to stuff. You can have ChatGPT summarise a book and know everything about the book in the space of 20 seconds in 10 bullet points. Back then, you had to go and buy the book, turn the pages, get your bookmark, understand it, digest it, which I think makes things sit with you for longer, more important. So I remember rereading Richard Branson books and other bits and pieces. Must have reread them 5-6 times, and then Audible turned up. I was like, oh great, I can just listen and go out on the road, sit my appointments, and other people will be listening to Kiss FM. I'll spend that hour learning something, and I've always done that. And now it's about practical situations. When I meet you or somebody else in here or whatever, it's okay. This is an opportunity for me to practically learn something from somebody. And I think when me and you first met, that was a part of me that I wanted to explore, which was you're clearly a guy with a lot of experience, a lot of decisions that you've made, good and bad. You've worked at different continents, you've worked in different businesses, all shapes and sizes. There's going to be something I'm going to take from him.
Yeah, I think that's really appreciative of you. I think not just with me, right? So because when we talk, I hear you talk about other people and how you've been talking to them and listening and so on and so forth. Yes. But I think I was guilty of being a bit overconfident and self-confident, and sometimes I can always blame time and all other
That's
things.
just youth, though, isn't it? Sure.
Yeah, it is. Yes. So,
the arrogance of youth.
Arrogance of youth, but it's also, I guess, to some extent, the family. You got commitments, more commitments than also. So it's never easy.
Yeah.
But if we really go back and say, make time. I think to me, whenever someone tells me they don't have time, today I can confidently say that you're wrong. You're just. It's up to you to decide
choice,
what
you say to me.
Choice.
You say to me, it's like, are you going to go and do that? And I'll be like, yeah. You're like, what are you not doing then? You can't just make another hour. So what are you giving up?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's these complementing challenges of wanting to go and do something versus just put the brakes on a little bit and just start thinking about what you're doing a little bit more. And that's, I suppose, comes with experience and stuff. So, what's next for you and the company? What do you want to leave viewers with?
I think this is what I absolutely love today, is being able to help. And every time we have our conversations, you take some action points. There's some little thing that you do, and that's my reward, primarily when you make a change, right? So, and when I see that, that's somebody moving one step ahead. When I see where your business is from where we started, that's my reward. That I may have in some small way contributed to making that change, and that's what I want to keep doing.
Are you actively looking for other businesses, or are you sort of happy with the people that you're working with at the moment?
I do have additional capacity, so I'm always happy to help, get involved in more. And the other part of it, from my tech hat now, I've also started getting more involved with AI startups.
Yeah.
Not in as much in the traditional coaching way, but still helping them with and getting to market and positioning themselves and so on and so forth. Looking at taking some small investments and so on and get into that AI space a lot more.
Okay, cool. All right, well, look, Shankar, thanks for coming in, mate. It'd be great to have a chat. Obviously, we've known each other for a little while now, but there's some stuff in there that I didn't even know about. So, yeah, it's all good. And like from first-hand experience, without sort of blowing smoke, I think me and you have worked together in one capacity or another for maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
Maybe more, I'm not sure. Really bad with dates and stuff. And yeah, there's been challenging points of that where you're challenged to try and think differently, and you come off of a call sometimes and you think, blimmin' hell, like, it's my business and I think we should do it like this way. But I think, it goes back to the whole reason why you engage somebody with more experience is you can ultimately actually make the decision yourself because it's your own company. However, there's not many people that will give you different options and challenge your decision making when you're at the level, not that it sounds grand, but when you're at a level where you run your own thing. Very rarely anybody in that company going to actually challenge what you say. And then you just develop a room of people that just say yes, Aaron, or yes, John, or whatever, and it's a dangerous place to be because you think every decision you make is the right one, and it's absolutely not. Having that external presence to politely and thoughtfully try and establish that there are other options that maybe you should consider or things you need to think about. It might mean that we crack on with the same plan, but just it morphs into a slightly different way of doing it. So yeah, it's been great to build on our relationship over the last few years, and obviously great to have you on so you can talk about what you do and learn about what you've been doing. And hopefully there's some people that listen to the episode today when it goes out that will want to engage with you in one way, shape or form, even if it's just for a chat and a bit of counsel about things. So if somebody does want to reach out to you, Shankar, what's the best method? Where can they find you?
I think LinkedIn is possibly the best way of getting in touch.
Yeah.
But anything, the website fierygrowth.com is always a place where you can actually have a contact with and reach out.
Well, we'll take the website, we'll tag you on LinkedIn when it goes live, and thanks for coming on, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Will do. Thanks a lot, Aaron. Great stuff that you're doing, and I'm really glad to be part of this.
Perfect. Good. That's a
Thank
wrap.
you.